Hey everybody, Dr. Darryl Joffrey here, CEO and founder of Alchemine and the author of Get Off Your Acid. So today I want to talk to you about one of the most important numbers in your body that you must know about, and there's a very good chance that your doctor hasn't checked this number for you. This is not your blood sugar, this is not your cholesterol, and it's not your blood pressure. This number that we need to talk about is the omega-3 to omega-6 balance ratio in your body. Now, omega-3s are anti-inflammatory and omega-6s are pro-inflammatory. And when this ratio is in a nice balance, you're going to live healthy, you're going to have your best chance of avoiding chronic, degenerative, inflammatory diseases. Things like heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's. You know, Alzheimer's is now the third cause of death in our country? How crazy is that? Growing up, I don't even remember people getting Alzheimer's. And what the research is showing is that Alzheimer's parallels inflammation of the brain. You see, you have to understand is that your brain is 60% fat. So it doesn't run on sugar like a lot of people think or even taught. It's actually run on fat. And when you're putting more of these inflammatory omega-6 fats in your body, guess what happens? It literally takes your brain out. It hijacks your brain. And what happens is it creates inflammation. And this is what leads to these problems, these degenerative diseases that have become epidemic. So again, this ratio is critical. I'm telling you, you must know what this is about. So what I want to do is just spend a couple of minutes and hang in there with me because the research I want to go over is literally so important. I'm going to really try to chunk it down and keep it simple, but you need to know about this. So just listen up for a few minutes. I promise this will be worth your time. So let me go over a couple of these things and I'll tell you more about the specific ratio, how you can get it tested. And this is something that's very easy to do, not too expensive. It's actually quite cost effective. And you could do this in less than 5 minutes in the comfort of your own house or apartment with our at-home omega-3 acid index test kit. We'll tell you more about that. But before that, let's talk about a couple of these things that we really got to tell you more about because again, there's a good chance you haven't heard about this. And I think you're going to be shocked by some of these things that I tell you, especially the last one, which I saved for last for a reason. So, in 2007, the lead author of this article wrote a book titled Prevention of Coronary Heart Disease, okay, cardiovascular issues, from the cholesterol hypothesis to omega-6, omega-3. So basically, this person, author, wrote a book about heart disease and the true cause of it. And this was what they concluded. High blood cholesterol levels is not the major factor for atherosclerosis, which is thickening of your blood vessels, okay? Plaquing your blood vessels. So cholesterol is not the cause of that. High cholesterol is a predictor of low mortality rates from cancer and all causes. So what they're saying is that the higher the cholesterol, the lower your cancer rates are. High dietary omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, so when that ratio is in balance, when you have more of these inflammatory omega-6s compared to the anti-inflammatory omega-3s, and like what's an example of omega-3s, everybody? All right, fish oil, wild-caught salmon. So those types of things are anti-inflammatory. So when there was a big difference in that ratio, this is the major risk factor for coronary heart disease. So what the research shows is that cholesterol is not the issue. In fact, cholesterol is a buffer of acid. All right, when your blood is acidic, it's toxic. Think about acid from a common sense standpoint. Acid is so corrosive, it could burn a hole through metal. So think about what that's doing inside your body, to your digestive system, to your cardiovascular system, to your brain. So it's literally eating away your blood vessels. So what your liver does is it makes cholesterol, specifically LDL cholesterol, which has been dubbed the bad cholesterol. Okay, everybody? It's not bad cholesterol. All right, what's happening is the liver makes this LDL, sends it out to actually plug up where the blood vessels are actually ulcerating, inflammation, bleeding. So what the cholesterol is doing is literally saving your life. The problem is LDL is the scapegoat. It shows up at the scene of the crime. So when doctors see the LDL level high, what do they say? Uh-oh, this is bad, everybody. And what they do, they put you on a statin drug. And what they're doing is removing the very self-defense mechanism that's saving your life. Now, if you're at the risk of having a stroke, then maybe you need to take something. So that's the exception to the rule. I'm not talking about the crisis. I'm talking about the true cause, all right, which is not cholesterol. It just is the scapegoat. You got to really understand that. All right, number 2. This is from the World Review of Nutrition and Dietetics. The editor is Artemis Simopoulos, prevention of coronary heart disease. So here's what they found. An unbalanced intake of omega-6s, inflammatory, to omega-3 fatty acids, anti-inflammatory, leads to inflammatory and thrombotic lipid mediators. Okay, so basically bad fat in the blood, which causes bad things to happen with your cardiovascular system. It altered cellular signaling and gene expression, which are major risk factors for coronary heart disease, cancers, and shorter longevity. So basically what that means in English is that when this ratio was really imbalanced, which for most Americans it is, and again, you can test that, it showed that you had higher risk of coronary artery disease, all right, which is things like heart attacks and stroke, cancer, and your longevity, your lifespan was decreased. Number 2, excessive intake of omega-6 fatty acids leads to enhanced inflammatory, thrombotic, and arrhythmatic events, which is irregular heartbeats, and it's proposed to be the major mediators for fatal disease. So what they're saying is that when you have too many omega-6s and not enough omega-3s, it actually increases your risk factors of fatality, of dying. All right, number 3, omega-6 fatty acids appears to be involved in both atherogenesis, thickening or narrowing of your blood vessel walls, and carcinogenesis, cancer. Number 4, increased omega-6 fats in the past several decades is a major risk factor for many types of cancer. Pretty crazy. So I hope you're really getting how important this number is. All right, moving on to Michael Pollan. Big famous guy. I love him. Amazing author. He had this thing called the theory of everything. And in it, this is what he said. And these are big studies. They're big authors here, everybody. This is not like foo-foo research. He says the majority of chronic, incurable degenerative diseases are linked to inflammation. So we're talking about things like heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, so on and so forth. The most critical driver of inflammation is the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fats, not cholesterol. Americans consume far too many inflammatory omega-6s, and in a second we're going to tell you actually where those come from, and far too few anti-inflammatory omega-3s. So again, if you're not taking fish oil, you are doing yourself a huge disservice. And it's got to be the right fish oil because so many of them have become rancid. You think they're actually decreasing inflammation, and what's happening is they're increasing inflammation. All right, and that's why one of the things I did, I was never planning on doing this, was creating our own fish oil for Alkaline. It's called Daily Omega-3. It's the only fish oil in the world that has the ideal 2-to-1 ratio of EPA to DHA, which is what you need for brain health and to fight inflammation. And it's through a process called molecular distillation. So again, what that means in English is we created the exact ratio that you need to fight inflammation, lower inflammation based on what the research says. And this is all research I did for my book. And what we did was a process of triple organic purification. We purified it 3 times. So we got rid of every heavy metal, over 400 contaminants that's in the ocean, which is obviously very bad. But what it also did was it concentrated the oil, so you need to take less to get more. That's why it's so important. So that was Michael Pollan, theory of everything. All right, moving on. We're almost through this, but you got to hear the rest of this because it's crazy. The American Academy of Pain and Management, Weiner's Pain Management, a practical guide for clinicians. This was the 7th edition in 2006. Here's what they said. Changes in the modern diet are largely responsible for the increasing incidence of essential fatty acid imbalances and deficiencies. So they're saying that our diets, our current modern diet, is why this ratio is so out of whack. Number 2, the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fats has changed dramatically due to the widespread use, so here's where they're coming from, everybody, widespread use of vegetable oils in cooking, such as soybean oil, corn oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, margarines, processed foods, and meats and fish that were fed with corn and soy. So it's not so much about the meat that you're eating, it's about what the meat that you're eating is eating. Get that? So it's the food they're eating, which is corn and soy. So the question is what should the ratio be? What should the ideal ratio be in your body? So if we look at our historical, prehistoric, or going back to cavemen, all right, the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3s was nearly 1-to-1 for prehistoric humans. So in other words, omega-3s had a 1-to-1 ratio compared to omega-6. It was balanced. So you might be asking, well, Dr. Darrow, if omega-6s are inflammatory and those are bad, why do we need them at all? Well, when we take the sample, what we do is we do a little poke of the skin right there, and we get a little blood sample, a little drop of blood. It's literally so painless and easy. But you got to remember that your body needs to heal that. Inflammation in the short run heals your body. It's critical. If I slam my fingers in the door, inflammation, blood coming to the area is going to heal the injury. But when it's chronic inflammation, when it's been there for a while, especially within your body and your brain, then that becomes dangerous, okay? So the ratio with our ancestors was 1-to-1. In fact, it was even 1-to-2 the other way in favor of omega-3s. By the turn of the century, 1900, the ratio had increased to about 4-to-1. So right around 1900, things started getting a little bit worse. So what's going on in our diets? The current average is about 25-to-1. So the average American, 25 omega-6s compared to 1 omega-3s, which is a big difference. And once that number goes above 4-to-1, you should be concerned. Once above 10-to-1, you should be very concerned. And we're going to tell you a stat in just a minute. It's going to blow your mind away about that. I interviewed a doctor in the book, and we'll save that for a second. So the sharp rise is due to increased vegetable oil consumption from 2 pounds per year in 1909 to 25 pounds per year in 1985. All right, that's 1985. We're 2018. I'm going to tell you that number's gone way up. And in fact, in the past 100 years, our consumption of soybean oil has actually increased 1,000-fold. It's in everything, all these processed foods. It's everywhere. So here's the important takeaway, everybody. Same research, maintaining a proper balance between your omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is one of the most important preventative measures a person can take to reduce the likelihood of developing one of the chronic diseases of modern civilization, such as diabetes, heart disease, obesity, irritable bowel syndrome, so inflammatory bowel issues, which I actually suffer with for a good portion of my life, and autoimmune disease. So how many doctors out there have told you had an autoimmune disease like Hashimoto's or rheumatoid arthritis, and then they're putting you on a drug for that, saying that this is what you need to do for the rest of your life, right? Did you actually check the inflammatory cascade in your body? Inflammation from an imbalance in this ratio, the research is showing, is a huge factor in these autoimmune issues. As for patients who may already have one of these diseases, testing this ratio and then the associated therapy, so helping you lower the omega-6s in your diet, but also getting the omega-3s increase, which narrows that gap, have been demonstrated to reduce both morbidity and mortality associated with these diseases. It's pretty interesting. The omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is associated with normal growth and development, as well as the outcome of hypertension, high blood pressure, cancer, arthritis, mental health, allergies, autoimmune issues, which we talked about, and depression, as well as pathophysiology of atherosclerosis. So again, thinning of your blood vessel walls, inflammation, and aging or premature aging. Omega-3s cause, this is crazy, apoptotic death. So apoptosis means death of a cell, death of cancer cells. So omega-3s kill cancer cells, whereas omega-6s allow the cancer cells to continue to proliferate. And there's other research that shows that in our country, 96,000 deaths a year are related to omega-3 fatty acid deficiency. So just taking fish oil, everybody, can have such a huge impact, not just on your hair, your skin, your nails, your connective tissue, but inflammation, brain health, cognitive function, memory, brain processing speed. Diets with a high omega-6 to 3 ratio may enhance the risk for both depression and inflammatory diseases. And it's associated with shorter telomeres, which is, again, related to aging and cancer, so on and so forth. All right, last one. Evolutionary aspects of the diet, omega-6 to 3 ratio from the Brain Molecular Neurobiology, January 2011. So again, this is top research. The balance of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids to the developing brain may be necessary for normal growth and functional development. So what does that mean? We got to get our kids tested, everybody. We got to get our kids tested. Kids are inflamed. 1 in 3 are becoming obese. It's from inflammation. Check our kids. It's painless. It's harmless. In Western diets, the omega-6 to 3 ratio is increased to between 10-to-1 and 20-to-1. And I'm going to tell you, I've tested thousands of these in my practice. I've seen 25-to-1. I've seen 50-to-1. I've even seen 88-to-1, which is dangerous, okay? The high omega-6 proportion is largely made up of linoleic acid. You don't need to know that. It's highly inappropriate for normal growth and development. So for your kids to grow properly, not just in height, but for their bodies to grow, their organs, their bones, their brains. Why do you have to take omega-3s fish oil when you're pregnant and when you're nursing? Because that's what gives the baby their growth for their brain. It's brain health, everybody. So this is why this is so important. The ratio of omega-6 to 3 fatty acids in the brain should be between 1:1 and 2:1 in agreement with the data from the evolutionary aspects of diet and genetics. A ratio of 1:1 and 2:1, omega-6 to 3 should be the target ratio for your health, okay? So that is your goal. You want to be ideally 1:1. And I'm going to tell you, in the thousands of ratios I've tested, I've only seen 1:1. And take one guess who it was. It wasn't me. It was my wife, Chelsea. I was so proud to actually say that. It was right after our baby Aaliyah was born, and she was literally pounding fish oils. And this was a little issue for her at first because she's a vegetarian. And, she has this obviously huge respect for animals, as I do. So that's why when we made our fish oil, I made sure that we obviously honored the ocean and the sustainability factors. And I'm actually proud to say that we have more certifications for our omega-3 fish oil than any other company in the world. So it's something I'm really proud to say. But my wife understood that she needed to be healthy. She needed to be healthy for her baby, and also that the baby was drawing the omega-3s from her. So if Chelsea was deficient, which almost every vegetarian is, because there's not a single vegetarian source of EPA, everybody, you got to get that. In fish oil, omega-3s, there's EPA and DHA. So kids need more DHA, adults need more EPA because we have more inflammation. So EPA fights inflammation, DHA is more for brain health, brain optimization. So this is why it's so important for kids to have this. But the problem with vegetarians is, number one, when you go for the vegan or vegetarian sources of these omega-3 fats, usually it's chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds. Here's the problem. It doesn't convert in your body to the omega-3s that you need, which is EPA and DHA. So these plant-based, and I'm a plant-based guy, everybody, you gotta understand that. I'm a huge proponent of the alkaline diet. But this is so important. When you take those omega-3 sources from a plant-based source, okay, it's ALA, alpha linoleic acid, and that's got to be converted to in your body via some enzymes to get the EPA and DHA that your body needs for the brain and for inflammation. But here's the problem. What the research shows, the most this converts in your body is 1%, and it's not even that, it's less than that. So this is why most of the vegetarians that I actually check with this test is actually worse than meat eaters sometimes. All right. Not only is there a lot of sugar sometimes in their diet, not all vegetarians. My wife is a perfect example of a healthy vegetarian. All right. So there's healthy vegetarians and there's sick vegetarians. So you got to become a healthy vegetarian, eat less sugar, but you got to get the omega-3s. So if this is something that you just won't do, I respect that totally 100%. Then you got to just literally double and triple the chia, flax, and hemp in your diet. But again, I plead with you to take an omega-3 fish oil because your health is too important, your longevity, all right? It's critical. And the other issue is that there's not a single vegetarian source of EPA. Now, you'll find a little bit of in algae, but it's literally negligible. I mean, you have to have, I would say, 40 soft gels or capsules a day to actually get the amount that you need. It's insane. So it just doesn't happen. It doesn't convert. You can't get enough. This is why we got to do this. We got to take the omega-3s, all right? So again, it should be 1:1, no more than 1:4, but this is what we're dealing with. And here's the bigger problem, right? The reason why so many people are getting dementia and brain issues, ADD in kids, is because of the omega-3 deficiencies and the omega-6. Now we can actually test this with a very simple at-home test. All right, but before I go over that, I'm going to take about 30 seconds or a minute to tell you about this last study. This is a doctor I interviewed in my new book, Get Off Your Acid, and his name is Dr. Joseph Hibel. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, but this is on page 85. And what he discovered, he looked at actually murderers and people in insane asylums, and he actually took the average omega-6 to 3 ratio. And what he found was that the average ratio was 70-1. And what he discovered was because there was so much inflammation, again, these omega-6s are pro-inflammatory, they compete for the same enzymes. When you have that big of a disparity, the brain is 60% fat, remember that. And the brain wants fat. So what happens? These fatty acids go to the brain, and what's going to win every single time? The omega-6 is the inflammatory. So they take your brain out. They literally hijack your brain, and it makes your brain whacked. It literally makes your brain chemically imbalanced so you can't think straight. And obviously there's a lot of things wrong with these people who commit these horrific crimes. You know, my brother and their family are from Newtown, Connecticut, where those horrific shootings were, where the 26 innocent people were killed, all those children. It was just absolutely awful. This should never happen, right? But what these ratios are showing is that for the average ratio of 71, it's literally making the brain crazy. And because your brain is primarily fat, a diet that heavily favors omega-6 fats cause inflammation of your brain. So again, in the health research, it was 70 to 1. And this is why we have to really shift the balance in terms of these. So pretty crazy research. I hope you hung in there with me. I know it was pretty heavy stuff there, but I wanted to give you that research because you need to know how serious this is, everybody. And this is, to me, crazy that these doctors, or most doctors, aren't testing. And if they are testing you from a venous source, which is the way they normally take blood, it's a false positive. For example, I had a client that came in and she was screaming inflammation. Hair was falling out, skin issues, memory issues. And I'm saying to myself, okay, the biggest deficiency had to be omega-3s. So I started talking to her about getting this tested. And she said, I had it tested. And it was actually from a pretty reputable company, a blood testing company. So as I investigated further and I looked at her blood samples, yes, she was right. It actually showed that she had more than the acceptable levels of omega-3s. And her doctors told her to stop taking fish oil because I told her to take it. So something wasn't right there. And I said, you know what? We got to investigate this further. Please just kind of muse me. I want to do this test and see what it shows. So we took it from capillary blood instead of the serum blood. And lo and behold, it showed that she had a major imbalance in her omega-3 to 6 ratio. I think it was like 18 to 1. And she absolutely needed omega-3 fats in terms of fish oil. I put her on more than 3,000 milligrams a day. And literally within a few months, about 4 months or so, the ratio was close to being balanced. And it takes about 4 months or so of high-dose omega-3s and locating these inflammatory fats in your diet to lower those to narrow that gap. And it is possible, everybody. It absolutely is possible. And the worse that ratio is, the more serious you got to take it. So if your ratio is over 4 to 1, you better be taking this serious because this is your health that we're talking about. This is your brain. This is your cardiovascular system. Remember, it's not the cholesterol. So that's why we have these test kits here. It's called the Omega-3 Acid Index Test Kit. So I teamed up with this amazing company called BrainSpan. I'm good friends with the founder of the company. He actually wrote a quote in my book. And this is a beautiful thing because we can send this to you in the mail. And with a little tiny lantern like this, you just unscrew this. I'll do another video to show you how easy this is. You just take a little boop like that. You get a drop of blood. You put on a little piece of paper in here. And then there's a self-stamped envelope that goes right to the company. And within 10 to 12 days, we will know the following information. Number 1, how deficient you are in omega-3s. So this is so important. Almost everybody is deficient, but how much? Now, the research shows that the average adult American should be consuming 3,000 milligrams of fish oil. So if you're taking our daily omega-3s from Alkamine, that would be 3 soft gels a day. Pretty simple. All right. But what this research will show you is it worse than that. There's some people have to have them take 9 because their ratio is so imbalanced. And it's not 9 for like ever. It's 9 for maybe 3 to 4 months. This is not you, I'm saying. But for some people, that's what it took to get them back to health. For some people, it's 3. I take 3 every single day, so does my wife. Right? Even my son, who's 4.5, takes omega-3. And my daughter, Aaliyah, who is actually 21 months, she takes omega-3s. Obviously much less, but they need it as well. So what this test is going to tell you exactly what you need. It'll eliminate the guesswork and it'll tell you what your omega-3 acid index is. So in other words, how deficient you are. The second thing it's going to tell you, what is your omega-3 to 6 ratio? So this is what I've been talking about this entire time. And I'm here to tell you, next to your blood pH, which is the most important number in your body. And again, how many doctors are talking about that? Not many. So next to that number, this ratio is the single most important number that you do not know about and you must. So it will tell you exactly what that ratio is. So we'll get a baseline. And then from there, what we'll do is we'll get this incredible report, very simple, easy to understand, and we'll email that to you, and it'll tell you exactly what's going on, what your numbers are, and what you need to do to actually change that, okay? And if you post this on our Facebook page, I'm happy to actually tell you my thoughts as well. So it'll tell you what that ratio is. Number 3, it's going to actually tell you the levels of something called palmitic acid. What that means in English is how toxic your cells are from carbohydrate metabolism, from sugar. All right, so many people out there are craving sugar, addicted to sugar in one way or another. If it's not the processed sugar, it's the hidden sugars in things like breads and, pasta sauces and all that stuff. So it's going to tell you how toxic your cells have become from carbohydrate metabolism. So those are the 3 major biomarkers we will get in 10 to 12 days. Amazing stuff, right? Then at the same time, we're going to send you a link, and on your phone, a touchscreen, or an iPad, you're going to take an online cognitive assessment. It takes no more than 15 minutes, all right? And do this within the 10 to 12 days that you're waiting for the blood. And what this is going to show us is cognitive function. So it's going to tell you what your brain's cognitive function is in terms of cognitive flexibility, your brain's processing speed, your brain's memory capacity, and your brain's sustained attention. So it's going to give us those 4 biomarkers, and then it'll take all those things, the blood part, the 3 blood tests, and then these 4 cognitive sections, and then it's going to put that and chunk it into one thing, and it's going to tell you based on systemic inflammation, which is what this test truly is about, is where the true inflammation is coming from your body that can cause potential serious issues. It'll tell you from a scale of 0 to 10 exactly what number you are in terms of how inflamed your body, your brain, and your cardiovascular system is. So this is powerful information, impactful information, things that you can do to literally change your life. So I really strongly recommend you guys check this out. If you want this, you can just click on the link and get this. And if you have any questions, be sure to reach out. Again, it's called the Omega-3 Acid Index Test Kit. And what I'll do in a separate video is I'll actually film a video to show you how easy it is to take this sample and get this actually done. So hope that explains everything, everybody. And in the meantime, stay focused, stay on your game, and get off your acid.